Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Matt. This is Prime Analog Records. I've been absent for a while, and I've got some stories to tell you about what happened in my month of March. It's been quite a run. All right, to start out with, I've got a huge problem. This is March. I've got a huge problem going on in my property. I've got a big bunch of. I'm a farmer now. What you guys, I don't know if you guys know, but I was an international fashion photographer for over 35 years, and I retired a couple of years ago, and now I'm a farmer, and I have orange groves, and I have adjacent property where I have cattle. And what we have a big problem going on is we have a big problem with hogs this year. And a couple of buddies of mine and I built a hog trap. And I've been having all kinds of issues with that, trying to get it put in and trying to keep my cattle out of it. So that's quite an interesting picture, right? so so we built the trap, and we're going to have to actually build a whole other fencing system back there to keep the cattle out. So that's one issue. Also, this time of year is the time of the year that we actually take a bunch of trees out of the grove that are dead or that are not producing properly, and we build a big a pile of this. It's a burn pile. And we do that over a year, and this is the time of year to actually burn, because there's not a whole lot of wind, and we also it's dry. It's not super dry, so it's legal to actually burn. When I talk about a burn pile, I'm talking about something half the size of your house. It's and pretty close to that, as tall. If you only have a single story on your house. But anyway, I went to burn that the other day, and I had some issues with wind shifts and stuff like that. And when I went to go light it, it exploded in my face. And that's why if you notice, I'm just starting to get my beard back and my mustache back, because it was on fire. And my whole arm was on fire. This arm here, it's got no hair on it. This is what my normal arm looks like. This one is completely on fire, and I jumped backwards with such force because of that, because the wind shifted and the whole thing blew up in my face. So I jumped backwards with such force that I had to do remember in grade school they teach you stop, drop, and roll. Where I never thought I'd ever need to use that. Well, I did. I jumped backwards, went to the ground, and rolled on the ground to put myself out, and my singed clothes and all that stuff. So anyway, to add insult to injury, this wind kicked up out of nowhere, and it started to travel into the grass that's around my trees. And then it started to move at such a rate that I've hurt my ankle really badly. I did a really bad sprain. I thought it was broken. I've been walking around on it for 2 weeks now. And but anyway, I had to jump up and run up to the well with my Jeep and fill up a couple of different containers of water and come back and wet the ground all the way around this pile to keep putting fires out that was heading towards the grove. So anyway, it's been a long time coming, and it's been wearing me out, and the pain has been wearing me out, and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's that. So the other day, I came back after another harrowing day at the grove. Yeah, being a farmer ain't no joke, but. Anyway, so I came back from the grove, and there was a VCLT here from Northern Revolutions, or Rob. So I am still digesting that. I'm working on that. I've been listening to all of it. I've listened to it multiple times already, but I'm sitting I'm putting a list together of all those kind of things and what it is. Another thing I've been listening to lately is Jay Graydon, and what got me interested, I was watching a video of him. He was talking about all kinds of things from, when he wrote the song or co-wrote the song "After the Love Is Gone" that Earth, Wind and Fire made famous, and people like that and things like that. And also Jay was on early Gino Vanelli albums. He was all over them. He was in Storm at Sunup, and he was also in Just at a Gemini. Those are two that I actually sent to Rob. So Rob, you should run back and take a look at listen to that, and you'll listen to what a brilliant guitar player he was back in his, I think it was probably about his mid-20s, if I had to guess. It's pretty impressive. But these albums I recently got, and this one is called Airplay for the Planet. It's this one here. And these are only available on CD. But here's the kicker on these things. Jay was one of the first ones to take on and understanding mastering processes and how to make a CD sound really, really good. He was really jumped on board of the digital thing really well. So he's incredible at recording and all this stuff. And I listened to this album, and it's incredible. If you like Toto, if you like Steely Dan, you're going to love this stuff. It's called Airplay for the Planet, and that's Jay Graydon's solo album. This one I just showed you here, and then this one I found out about this one watching this documentary, and it's called JAR, which I'm not really 100% sure what that means. But this album is incredible. It really sounds, you hear, it sounds so much like Steely Dan, and a lot of people don't know, Steely Dan, Jay Graydon played a lot of the guitars in Steely Dan, in many different things, and one right off the top of my head he did was, I think it was Peg. He did the guitar work in that, and actually he was talking about that, and he said that he actually didn't know that his was picked because Steely Dan would bring in all these different guitarists and try them out on the same part and let them come up with their own rendition for the solo. And he said he didn't even know his was picked until he heard it on the radio in the back of a taxi cab in New York City. So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, this one's called JAR, Jar, and it's really interesting, and it's really musical. It's beautiful. He's got people on here like John Williams' son, who actually sang on Joseph Williams. He sang for Toto for solo for a couple of years. But anyway, let me get back to what I'm really going to talk about here, even though I've kind of gotten off topic. I started showing this, and I've got to tell you. This is the first one step I bought, and I showed the unboxing of it, and it was set up in a bulletproof setup basically. But let me tell you, this is so beautifully done in every way, and I do not have this album, so I'm not going to do a comparison like others have done about this. I'm going to tell you about my experience with this. And it's got a beautiful slip cover like this, and then you pull it out, and it's got a booklet in here. It's Getz Gilberto right here, and it's so beautifully done. The spine is perfect. Everything about this, the way the shipping was, it's got a booklet inside here, so you can sit there and flip through all this information. There's lots and lots of information in here about the recording, about the process, about all this kind of stuff, and it's really interesting. But I'm going to tell you just about what I've heard as far as the process and what they did. And like I said, this is no comparison, but I'm going to tell you This is one of the most dynamic pieces I've ever heard. I have never had this in my jazz collection, and I have a pretty formidable jazz collection. And I purposely jumped on this because Scott over at the Pressing Matters talked about it, and Mike at the In Groove talked about it being the definitive copy. So I was really very interested in getting a hold of it. And wow, I've got to tell you, I mean, the only issue I'm going to tell you about that I had, and it kind of went away when I put it on my conventional tracking turntable, but I started listening to it first on my linear tracking turntable. That's my Yamaha PX3, and it's got a moving coil cartridge on it. And it sounded amazing, but it sounds a little bright through a moving coil cartridge. For some reason, it just sounds a little on the bright side. Now, I'm not saying this is the way these things were recorded back then, and it's incredibly accurate. The dynamics are stunning. If for nothing else, it's just stunning. And then there's some interesting panning that's going on from the different speakers, from right to left and left to right, because I can almost hear Stan Getz, which is the most dynamic part, obviously, because of the way that the reed instrument is. You have to get enough air through it, that it's kind of a little bit loud, I think, for the mix. But as far as I'm no genius as far as knowing all this stuff. I just remember the way that my brother played saxophone, and I remember what it sounded like, and he had to get enough air through that reed to actually make the sound correct. And but Stan Getz, I mean, genius. I've got multiple Stan Getz albums in here. I've just never heard this, but it's really super impressive. And but I can tell you this much. I switched over after listening. I've listened to this thing through now probably about 8 or 9 times, and when I moved it over to my conventional tracking turntable, which is a pivot arm, it sounded better because it's a little warmer cartridge I have on that. And it just sounded better. It sounded more realistic. It sounded a little bit like more of the blend as opposed to Stan Getz's that saxophone being so far out in front. And as far as the mix is concerned, I don't know if I would change it now listening to that. But the moving coils seem to exaggerate some of that. Another thing is that Astrid's voice on "Girl from Ipanema," and she also sings a couple more on there on this album, and she's just very timid sounding. I typically don't like girls that sound like that. Now I've heard this song before. Like I said, I've heard bits and pieces of this album before, but I've never heard it in a straight through manner. And running this at 45 RPM gives it enough space through so you can really hear details, and I mean amazing details that are like very, very light touch, percussion instruments in the very background that just and all the while you're listening to all this loud, boomy saxophone. It's really shocking because you start to really pick up on pieces or things about the piece that are really incredible. And I have to say that if you don't have this album and you're really getting into jazz, you need to get this album. And this, from what I've heard, like I said, I don't have a comparison to go by, but I can tell you that the dynamic range of this will probably blow your system away. You better have some horsepower on the top end, meaning you have more watts than you use, because you're going to need it, because it's going to really challenge your system. It'll challenge the top end of your system, I can tell you. I've played this at lower volumes, but I tend to like things at a live volume. So that's just me. That's just my way of playing things. But I've got to say that it's well worth the money. I think that as far as the rudimentary mix of it, I'm used to listening to like mobile fidelity stuff and analog production stuff, and they kind of mix things a little bit differently, and everything's much more homogenized. And but this is very separated and all this stuff. Also, Gilberto's his vocals are very wimpy to me. I just don't like guys singing like that. It's very monotone and it's very soft, and I mean, I was raised in a background with my father with male singers singing big. I mean, baritone singing. I mean, through the opera and stuff like that. And so that's why I like singers that are very strong and they're forceful. But this music is very gentle, and there's a timidity to it that it's gentle. It's a gentle way to get into jazz. It's not crazy harsh or anything like that, like some of Miles Davis's stuff can come off. I can't compare it to Coltrane either, because Coltrane has a smoothness about his work that was just it's incomparable. So anyway, like I said, if you're really wanting to get this album, this is the one to get, and from what they've all said. And I can tell you, I've listened to it many, many times now, and I really love it. So don't sit on the fence. Get out there and get it. We'll talk to you soon. I've got several more videos that I've got to catch up on. I've really gotten behind. So we'll talk to you guys soon. All my best.